What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Thursday, August 1st, 2019, and start of a brand new month, start of a brand new series of adventures, whatever. And we've got a lot of stuff to talk about today. It's a busy news day, apparently, over on Fox News. Shepard Smith was discussing a Bigfoot sighting, according to Stephen Elkin. So, yeah, and I've noticed they're pushing UFOs a lot. I was going around the cable box last night, and, you know, UFOs and space aliens, which means they're testing something up there and don't want us to realize that we paid for it. All right, so the phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. That's 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, ready to answer the phone, put you on the air with your comments, questions, and opinions. So let's just get right on into it. Obviously, last night, Chapter 2 of the second Democratic debate, and it was a circus. It was a lot of craziness. Almost as crazy as Marianne Williamson on Tuesday. Kirsten Gillibrand and Jay Inslee came across as slightly unhinged. Joe Biden constantly stumbled over numbers and phrases with an incoherent presentation that's probably going to haunt him to the election. In fact, his closing statement really confused a lot of people. So the Democrats may have more than 20 candidates running, but none of them are looking presidential. Now, maybe that'll change, or maybe a stronger candidate will enter the race eventually. But right now, Democratic strategists can't be feeling too good about their chances of winning the 2020 election. Interestingly enough, Tulsi Gabbard did poll very high in the post-debate polls here. But some of the stuff these candidates were saying just didn't really make any sense. Kirsten Gillibrand said, the first thing that I'm going to do when I'm president is I'm going to Clorox the Oval Office. Jay Inslee said, our house is on fire. We have to stop using coal in 10 years, and we need a president to do it, or it won't get done. Get off coal, save this country and the planet. So we're into this whole global warming thing here. Joe Biden was out there saying Obamacare is not working, which, yeah, he's actually right about that one. Julian Castro said, I don't want to make America anything again. I don't want us to go backward. We're not going back to the past. We're not going back where we came from. We're going to move forward. Suitably vague. Doesn't really say what it is he's got in mind. Andrew Yang came across saying, we need to do the opposite of much of what we're doing right now. And the opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian man who likes math. Kamala Harris, and she had a rough night last night. What we need is someone who is going to be on that debate stage with Donald Trump and defeat him by being able to prosecute the case against 4 more years. And let me tell you, we've got a long rap sheet. Cory Booker said, we have a real crisis in our country, and the crisis is Donald Trump. But not only Donald Trump, I have a frustration that sometimes people are saying the only thing they want is to beat Donald Trump. Well, that's the floor and not the ceiling. Actually, that does make a little bit of sense here. Bill de Blasio said, if we're going to beat Donald Trump, this has to be a party that stands for something. The party of labor unions. This has to be the party of universal health care. There has to be the party that's not afraid to say out loud, we're going to tax the heck out of the wealthy. And when we do that, Donald Trump, right on cue, will call us socialists. And here's what I'll say to him, Donald, you're the real socialist. So Jay Inslee said, and number two, we have to make America what it's always been, a place of refuge. We've got to boost the number of people we accept. I'm proud to have been the first governor saying, send us your Syrian refugees. I'm proud to have been the first governor to stand up against Donald Trump's Muslim ban. I'm proud to have sued him 21 times and beat him 21 times in a row. I am ready for November 2020. Andrew Yang again said, raise your hand in the crowd if you've seen stores closing where you live. And of course, a lot of hands went up. It's not just you. Amazon is closing 30% of America's stores and malls. I don't really think it's Amazon. They like to blame Amazon, but it's really the economy. The American people don't have money. Cory Booker came on out and said, there's a saying in my community that you're dipping into the Kool-Aid and you don't even know the flavor. I have absolutely no idea what he's trying to say here. Kirsten Gillibrand, again, I think as a white woman of privilege who's a U.S. Senator running for President of the United States, it is my responsibility to lift up those voices that aren't being listened to. And I can talk to these white women in the suburbs and explain to them what white privilege actually is. Jay Inslee, we have one last chance. When you have one chance in life, you take it. Think about this. Literally, the survival of humanity on this planet and civilization is in the hands of the next president, and we have to have a leader who will do what is necessary to save us, and that includes making this the top priority of the next presidency. So they were pushing global warming and bash Trump, open borders, the basic liberal agenda. And overall, it looks like the Democratic Party is drifting further and further left. All right, we're going to do a shout out to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. Now, former Vice President Biden stumbled through his debate. One thing he said may have ended his chances of being president. And again, this goes back to that whole global warming thing. And he said that he promised to eliminate fossil fuels. Well, he's not going to win Pennsylvania with that one. So, but again, I don't know why people get all that excited about the debates, because what they're saying now, what they're promising now, it has no more bearing on what they'll do in office than what they say on the campaign trail. We had Obama promise to end the wars. We've had Trump promise to end the wars. The wars are still ongoing. All right, we're going to take a phone call here from Doug in Thailand. Aloha, Doug. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hiya, Mike. Aloha. I hope you got my email. I wanted to say something about conversation from a few days ago. Firstly, how much I like to hear from Dustin. He's insightful, he's articulate, and he speaks like from a sort of sensibility I think I come from, and you too share. I think you take a lot of his calls because he gives you a backdrop, or sort of, I don't know how to, it works better with someone that, whoever was complaining, I forget the details, guy from somewhere down southeast. I think disagree with him is all right, but it kind of upset me to hear it turning into, on one hand you're talking about unity, and I'm heading back to Taiwan tomorrow.
Okay, well, be careful. Things are getting very tense over there right now.
Yeah, well, I'll be able to let you know how it is. The mayor of Taipei, Ko, is very popular, nonpartisan. He's throwing his hat in the ring and starting a new Taiwan People Party. I'm already on the team. Well,
okay.
Doesn't matter. Just something. And all the best, Mike.
Well, all the best to you, too. All right, thanks a lot.
Shut off there,
we're going to let you go.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, getting on back to the Democratic debate here. Charles Barkley came on out with an interesting statement. He said, every black person I know has always voted Democratic. All those people are still poor. Well, it's not just black people. Everybody who votes Democratic winds up staying poor. Look at what's going on in these Democratic stronghold cities of Los Angeles and San Francisco and Baltimore and Chicago. They're struggling just to get by. So anyway, Kamala Harris mixed it up with Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi clearly came out on top. Kamala Harris dismissed it as a fancy opinion on a stage. But the hashtag Kamala Harris destroyed was trending on Twitter after Tulsi Gabbard. So, of course, what happens? Oh, it must be Russian bots. It couldn't be that Tulsi actually did a good job. It must be the Russian bots. So Gabbard basically shredded Harris for jailing more than 1,500 non-violent marijuana offenders while admitting in a radio interview that she herself had smoked marijuana in college. And she blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor. She fought to keep the cash bail system in place and basically left Kamala Harris nowhere to go. So you're making up for that BDS vote there, Tulsi. Then she goofed again. Tulsi Gabbard said at the debate that Trump is supporting Al-Qaeda. It was poorly timed when you consider the news coming on out that Osama bin Laden's son was dead. And apparently he was killed within the last 2 years. So it makes you wonder, why is it just being leaked out now? But according to 2 U.S. officials, the U.S. government had a role in the operation that killed the younger bin Laden. So he was taken out, he was assassinated sometime in the last 2 years. And for some reason, it's been let out now. And maybe somebody knew that Tulsi was going to say Trump was soft on Al-Qaeda, and this was put on out there to counter that. Anyway, the Democratic strategists are indeed concerned that Trump is likely to win next year's election. They're seeing a lot of Democratic infighting. There's a lack of a real message. There are no new ideas. It's just a rehash of everything they've been talking about for the last several election cycles, like global warming. So Michael Moore is out there saying only one candidate can crush Trump, and she's not running. And he was doing an interview with MSNBC, reported by The Hill. And he's not talking about Hillary Clinton, which was my first assumption when I saw the headline. He's talking about Michelle Obama. He thinks she can come on in and give the Democratic Party a real shot at the White House. And I'm sorry, I disagree. The Obama brand is not that good, and Michelle herself lacks experience in public life. She doesn't have qualifications. So, but Michael Moore is out there pushing for Michelle Obama. Maybe it's because word has trickled down that Hillary definitely will not be coming on in. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Now, a story that came on out from Chimp Planet said that during the course of the debate, somebody over at CNN was manually abusing YouTube's copyright system to order takedowns of commentators covering last night's DNC debate, resulting in 90-day live stream bans for those channels. So basically, CNN wanted exclusivity, and it was a wanton display of disregard for the fact that this was a public forum. So, again, we're in a war between corporate media and independent media. All righty, we're going to take a phone call now. Tom in Florida, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Good day, Michael. Yeah, Michael, I think there's two major outcomes that came out of this debate, and I think you're going to agree with it. The first and the most major one was that guy Lang, or whatever, saying about global warming. And even if the United States follows all the accords, the Indians and the Chinese won't. That is the biggest thing that actually really did come out of this debate, because this global warming nonsense has got to stop. These filthy, lying demon rats keep pumping this global warming. Even if the United States cooperated, the Indians and the Chinese are not. And the second thing, Michael, is this guy Biden, he couldn't even get out of his number in the end. He couldn't even get out of his text, the text from Joe. I mean, this guy, next year, he's going to be 78 years. He wants to be president of the United States. He's already looks like he's starting to get traces of dementia.
Yeah.
He's looking like Pelosi's got Tourette's. You can see her going. And how does a woman, 78 years old, have such smooth face like that, Michael? How much money has Pelosi pumped into that face?
Probably quite a bit.
She spent over $2 million on that face. $2 million. And, she talks about all these illegals. Well, why don't we take 5,000 of them, stick them right here in her compound? She's worth $38 million. Her husband's worth almost $1 billion. She's worth $58 billion. And, she has this big wall around her, like old Barry Soetoro, who's saying Obama's got a wall around his property in Washington. Let's stick all these illegals on their property. Let them be maids or something. Give them jobs. Because I'm looking at Biden last night. I mean, this guy, next year at this time, he's going to be a beat-down, worn-out punching bag. I mean, the guy's going to be 78 years old. What is he going to be, a one-term president? Is that what he wants? To destroy Trump? And the nonsense of all this. Look, Michael, like I told you, OAN, every day I look at it, I'm like, I can't believe that there's at least one network that's telling the truth about immigration. All these other networks, they should be held for treason because they're allowing never to tell the truth to the American public. And I'll repeat this to you, Michael. I live in South Florida, and I want everybody in your audience to understand this. Miami-Dade County, Broward County was called the land of the Magic City, okay, back in the 60s. Again, I'll repeat this. There's not one white male, Anglo male, on the Miami-Dade County Commission. Broward County's only got 5 left. And there's one other story I want to let you know about, Michael. Did you see the story about Hungary right now? It's going on. It was on the news. Breitbart and Drudge had it on. You saw the story about the men and women in Hungary? Saw that story, Michael?
No, I didn't see that one.
All over the news. Okay, there's a story right now that's breaking in Breitbart and Drudge that the Hungarian government now is proposing that every white couple in Hungary, I guess they're naturalized Hungarians, for every baby they have, they're going to get $30,000. I guess it's in euros or whatever. So basically, if a woman has 3 kids, she's going to end up, I think I read it was like $90,000 to have a baby.
Yes.
For each baby. Each baby's $30,000. Well, you know what, Michael? They're going to have to implement that here in this country eventually. I hate to tell you. I believe I saw a story in USA, the paper, about USA had an article about that about 5 years ago about France, because the most popular name in France is Mohammed or Allah. And I mean, I'm like, what's going on? And then you got these demon rats on that stage last night saying they want to have open borders. California's already flooded. The hospitals are closing down. It's a disaster area.
Yes.
Sewage leaking in from Mexico up into San Diego. I mean, this is madness. And you know what? Nobody's being held accountable. And, Michael, as much as I care for, I love what Trump's doing, there are some things I have to totally agree with you on. And one is he's never arrested none of these people. Now they're going to let Homie Comey off.
Yes.
Well, he did the same thing as Hillary, and they're going to let this guy slide. Comey.
Yes. That
clown, that big 6'8" dork. That looks like a big doofball. What's going on in the FBI? And it's a madness. It's utter madness. Utter madness. As far as like I was telling you yesterday, Michael, here in the state of Florida, the vote counts. But where Dustin lives and all that, New Jersey, New York, California, your vote doesn't count if you're an Anglo. All the Anglos are fleeing California like mad. 6,000 a day. I saw it on I think it was on Drudge about 2 months ago, that people are literally fleeing out of California in droves. They've been beat down. I guess they gave up, or they're liberal freaks and they want to destroy other states. Look! All these people coming out of New Jersey, going to Carolinas and Virginia, they're destroying that place. They're liberals. That's how they're working. Is the Democrat Party's working these liberals to start migrating to other states so they can turn them blue. This is all modus of operandi by the demon rats.
All right. Well, listen, Tom, stay on the line. I'm going to put you on hold. Got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're still talking with Tom in Florida about last night's debate. And did you get a sense that the Democratic Party is being shoved harder to the left by the squad?
Yes, Michael, absolutely. I'll tell you what's really telling is this guy Castro. he was worked for Obama, and he never said a word, and then he's chewing out Biden and saying Biden about the immigration. But here, this guy Castro, this guy totally wants the country flooded with multiple millions of Hispanics, so they'll actually turn this country to a Spanish-speaking country. Let's tell the truth, Castro. He's probably just as like a dictator like Fidel. This guy Castro was really chewing out Biden, but here in the meantime, he was working for Obama, and he never did he never said nothing to Obama about it. Why did he go? All of a sudden, he got an awakening. I mean, that was telling in itself. That whole debate was nothing but Bolshevik socialist communism.
Yes.
And I think these people should go live in Cuba or Venezuela, all of them, including Biden. He's another ass clown. That's got to be stopped. But you know what, Michael? I don't know. The American public is, I guess they're that stupid. And I'll leave you with this thought, Michael. They have I don't know if you've been seeing a video of this guy Cummings. Elijah Cummings.
Yeah.
In 1999 in Baltimore. Did you see the video of that?
Yeah, where he himself is saying that the city is infested.
Yeah, but can you imagine if Trump would have said can you imagine if Trump would have used the word zombies? That the people in Baltimore are walking around like zombies? Can you imagine if Trump would have said that?
Yeah, they would have gone after him. I mean, clearly, they're in the media. There's a double
They would have
standard.
gone insane.
Yep.
Yeah, they would have totally gone insane. But Michael, I still don't. It's like, what's happened? You know what I'm saying? It's what happened. So it's just mind blowing to me.
All right.
However,
well, listen. The phone lines are loading
it is what
up.
It is.
So thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to let you go and switch over to Joe in Tennessee. Aloha, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, you can tell, Tom, what happened is the culture, the television, the media, and the education system. That's you watched the debate last night, and it's just like he was saying, it was a bunch of socialists in the service of oligarchs. I read the quote today, and I said that about sums it up: socialists in the service of oligarchs.
Yep.
The oligarchs, they love climate change, and they hide behind the whole racism thing. And but I got to tell you, Joe Biden, as a Trump fan, there's nobody I'd like to see more than Joe Biden. I mean, when you watch Trump right now, he's out there on the White House lawn talking to the press. I mean, he's wheeling and dealing, and he's thinking on his feet. Joe Biden, he's got brain damage. I mean, he's seriously got something wrong mentally. And when you look at his positions, I mean, on NAFTA, on coal and global warming, I mean, how's that going to be in the states like Wisconsin and Michigan with the cars in Michigan, and then in Ohio and Pennsylvania with the coal? The Democrats need to take those blue states back in order to get a victory. And it seems like they're all appealing to the black vote, like bending over backwards to such a degree. They're alienating the moderate and the independent liberals. And I also noticed that they seem to be appealing to women. And I think there comes a point when women they can sense, they're white women. They have white husbands. They have white sons. These people, they're getting advice from like a bunch of sorority girls that just got out of like some super liberal college or something. I mean, they are so out of touch with the mainstream. I mean, Trump is blessed with these people as his enemies. I mean, unless they cheat, completely cheat with legal aliens and all that, or something bad financially, or whatever happened. But I got to say, Tulsi was outstanding. And I'm not just saying this because I agree with her anti-war position. She's very beautiful. She's very well-spoken. She didn't get all shrill and hysterical like all the others. She was like of all of them. And what she said was, I disagree with her on climate change, but she wasn't like hysterical. That one guy saying, it's already too late. The world's going to end. Move to higher ground. I mean, but I got to tell you, the Democrats will never let her win, just like the Republicans wouldn't let Ron Paul win.
Yeah.
But if they want to beat Trump, of all the people I've seen, she's the only one that has a chance of beating Trump. She thinks on her feet. She's attractive. She's well-spoken. She's not hysterical. She can get the independent votes. But I think because of her war positions, and they'll never let her in.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to Ron Paul her. They already are. They're like cutting down on her surge that she had. They're faking the numbers. they're calling her a Putin's puppet. But when I watched her go after Kamala Harris, I said, wow, ooh, she just tore her up. And Kamala Harris, she can't think on her feet. She just couldn't. It just showed her weakness. So if the Democrats were smart, unless they have a ringer on the sidelines, which might be Hillary, the only candidate I saw last night that could beat Trump was Tulsi Gabbard, and the same way with the night before. And Biden is incredibly weak candidate. I mean, they're going to bring up his son's China connections, you name it. Trump is just salivating to get into a debate with that guy.
Okay, well, Joe, we're going to have to let you go because we got to take another break for commercials. Back with more phone calls after these few words. Aloha, America. Let's go back to the phones here to Steve Elkins. Aloha, Steve. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, just to add to what Tom was talking about in Florida about people leaving California, and I lived there for nearly 9 years, close to 10 years, and I left because people asked me, why'd you leave California? I loved California, but I left because I did throw in the towel. And I went to those town council meetings, and I remember the first one in Santa Rosa, where they were going to decide on if Santa Rosa would be the first sanctuary city in the state. And I went to that town council meeting, and I had my 3 minutes to speak. And I stood up there, and I tell you, I looked at every one of those council members. I pointed a finger, and I said, we shouldn't even be here discussing this. This is illegal. What you're thinking about deciding on is illegal, and I hold each and every one of you accountable to following the rule of law. So I said what I had to say, and I went home and waited for the verdict to come through. The next day it was reported in the paper, the Press Democrat, that the town council had decided Santa Rosa would be the first sanctuary city in the state of California. I knew right then and there I had no voice anymore. A citizen had no voice, and I threw in the towel, and I hated to do that. But when you can't have people follow the rule of law, and you can't force them to follow the rule of law, and there's no attorney stepping forward to fight for the citizen, I finally said, I threw my hands up and I said, that's it, we're out of here. Get the house ready, we're putting it up for sale, and we left. We moved.
Yep. I know what you're going through right now. I mean, I love Hawaii, but it too is a liberal state, and it's deteriorated quite a bit since we moved here. I mean, the roads are terrible, and when we were going through the situation with Claire's back injury, it was like having to dodge the potholes that were causing her so much pain. When we had the Honda stolen and we got the newer car, and Claire and I said, oh, great, we can finally, get out onto the island, because with the Honda, it was so old and fragile. We just didn't go anywhere outside of the supermarket. But then we started trying to go on out with the newer car, but the roads are just so terrible. Again, it was making Claire uncomfortable and in pain. So, the place has really fallen apart. We've got this disaster with the light rail system. We've got a massive homeless problem on this island. Yes, we have illegal immigrants and refugees on this island. So I figured it was definitely time to move to a red state.
Yeah. I'm always been a fighter, and I hate to run away from it, but you do realize at some point in time you were going to lose this. And when it came down to economics, I know California they're in trouble, deep economic trouble. And so my move was actually an economic move also, to say I either sell now at the height or I lose. And yes. I'm not going to lose twice, That's it for me, Mike. Have a great show.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Jim in Illinois. Aloha, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. When I travel throughout the Midwest, and I do that quite often, and I speak to the average person that lives in those states, they're not happy with the Democrats. They are not happy with the Republicans, and they are very, very disappointed, and they blame corporate America because no one's helping people these days. I mean, it's easy to say, the Democrats have gone to the left, and I agree with that. But unfortunately, the Republican Party is now the Trump Party. And I think the biggest problem that Trump's going to have is himself. He cannot control himself. In fact, I was watching the news a second ago, and the White House are nervous about Trump giving a speech today because they don't know what the hell he's going to say.
Yeah, well, what he basically said is come September, they're going to sanction the rest of the Chinese, or tariff the rest of the Chinese goods.
Right, I heard that, and which means the corporate America is not going to be happy.
No, well, the retailers and importers aren't going to be happy, but I'm hoping, that we're going to start seeing more investment into manufacturing. But like we reported yesterday, we have these American corporations like GM. They're still shutting down their factories. They shut down this transmission plant that's been making transmissions for 78 years. Let all the workers go.
Did you read where, when Trump is talking about bailing out the farmers? Did you read where 80% of the bailout went toward corporate farms,
yes,
and the other farmers, they got around about $5,000?
Yeah, I read that.
So how is that a bail? How is that a bailout?
Well, it's a bailout for the corporate farms, but as far as the small family farms, yeah. And it's accelerating the point at which these corporate farms are going to buy up the last of these small family farms, and then it will all be corporate farming.
Right. And finally, I did listen to most of the debates. As a person who votes independent, I'm not happy with any of those Democrats running. I might just have to, not vote again like it did last time, but Joe Biden, he might have a chance. As far as the other ones, they're not ready. They're not realistic. And again, where in the hell is the money going to come from?
Yes.
I mean, that's the biggest thing, and they don't want to talk about that.
No, they don't. They don't.
Well, Michael, you take care.
All right, thanks an awful lot, Jim. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why these Democratic strongholds are in trouble. The liberals get elected making promises of all kinds of free stuff. They don't talk about where the money's going to come from, but the money gets basically sucked out of the general population and the city itself, and so the city crumbles into disrepair. And it's a very short-term way of governing. Like, things will be okay for the next 4 to 6 years, and after that, it's somebody else's problem. All right, back to the phones here. Mark in North Carolina. Aloha, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing, Mike? Mike, I was watching the debate yesterday on InfoWars, on your own channel there.
Yes.
And I thought Tulsi was excellent. I thought she started off slow, but she really caught on. She called Trump out, as she should have. I was disgusted with Owen Schroyer there. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking of stopping with InfoWars completely. He's calling her. He's saying she's lying about Trump being a warmonger and supporting Al Qaeda. She's very much so supporting Al Qaeda. He's supporting the White Helmets. He supports. They threatened Syria if they attacked Idlib. They even threatened Russia in a way if they attacked Idlib. He's supporting the Saudis, who are definitely supporting Al Qaeda, and he supports Israel.
Yes,
as a supporter of Al Qaeda. So admitted, by the way, they admit they supported him. So I'm really fed up with InfoWars. I tweeted him on Twitter. I told him he's full of it, and that Tulsi was absolutely right yesterday. As far as her support for that BDS or anti-BDS thing, that has no teeth. It's just a statement. I'm disgusted with it. She shouldn't have done it, but I'm willing to see what happens still, because I think all the Democrats and the Republicans, nobody's even close. She made a fool out of Kamala Harris. I love that, because Kamala Harris is, to me, Hillary Clinton with more pigmentation. That's all she is. Very similar. I don't like her. I don't even like her face. I don't like her body language. I don't like her tone of voice. I don't like anything about that woman. And I don't like hypocrisy. Biden is basically, I don't know if Biden's really got it together anymore. He seems to have lost a lot of his thinking capacity. He never was very much to begin with. And far as Bernie Sanders goes, I think Tulsi, you're getting a lot more with Tulsi, who's got experience. She's got military experience. She's not afraid to take on the generals or the intelligence people. I really can't see anybody better right now in either party. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to buy this stuff about Trump that he's not a peacemaker. Look what he's doing with Iran. We're very close to war with Iran.
Yes.
We don't have to have our fleet right there. There's no reason to have our fleet right there. We don't have to be putting the sanctions in Syria so they can't even get oil. This is criminal. And actually occupying some of the Syrian oil fields over there, we are actually helping Al Qaeda just by doing that. We're helping ISIS, Al Qaeda, a whole bunch, who I believe are just mercenaries anyway. They're CIA hired mercenaries, and CIA, Mossad, probably British intelligence mercenaries. So all around, I don't see any other hope other than Tulsi. I mean, she may turn out to be a bust too, but I don't think so. I read her. I read the way she talks and everything like that, and she basically sticks pretty much to principle. I think when she says we're going to end these regime change wars and we're going to take our troops out of these places, we're going to bring them home. And I really liked at the end too when she brought out the fact that you want to have things like national health care and fix the infrastructure, like you just said, that kind of infrastructure you got in places like Hawaii, and got problems even around here in North Carolina. Roads aren't the greatest in the world. If you're going to do that, you got to cut that military. I call it the imperial budget because that's what it is. Yes. Imperial budget. It funds the empire. You could drastically reduce that and use that money for decent things for this country. You know, Russia spent $61 billion on their defense budget. They actually lowered it, I think, last year.
Yes, Putin lowered it.
Yet they still got a military that's second to none. I don't care what anybody says. They're prepared to defend their country, and if anything occurs, like to the Ukraine or any of those places around Russia's border, I feel sorry for any troops that be in the way of the Russian army, because they are superb. They know they're defending their country, and they've got excellent weapons. And this is just spending $61 billion defense budget, but they're not out to police the world these days. They're not an empire. They got rid of their empire.
Yes.
We got to get rid of ours. There's no reason if they spend $61 billion, then we couldn't get away with the same thing with $61 billion. As long as we defend this country, who cares what goes on in the Middle East, really? It's none of our business. Or in Asia. Now they're making a big thing about China with, I don't know, those islands there.
Yeah.
Even what's that called, Taiwan and Hong Kong. That's none of our business. That's China's business. Just like if something went down in one of our states here in the United States and they had to send in troops or something, nothing of that. It wouldn't be Russia's business or it would be China's business. Leave these people alone. Bring our troops home. Close something like 800 bases around the world. And that's it. Support our troops. Really support them by bringing them home. Bring them on the border. At least maybe we could stop this invasion. But another thing that would stop the problems on the border is we stopped meddling in South America, like in Guatemala. We overthrew this guy something like 10 years ago.
Yes.
And, we got some kind of a fascist in there. Because, he was a socialist. I don't care if he was a socialist. Some ways socialism probably works in certain countries. I think it works better than, it certainly works better than fascism. I mean, come on. Defend this country. Let's take care of the problems in this country. Okay? Withdraw from all these places. Close these bases around the world. Stop meddling. And hopefully somebody like Tulsi will become president. I do have a little bit more hope than I had because she really is, they can't keep her down anymore. She's trending all over the place. No matter what they do to try to stop her, she seems to be getting better and better. And I'm talking about her polling, and her recognition. I drove to Florida recently. One of my sons lives down there.
Yeah.
And all through South Carolina, surprisingly, they had Tulsi signs up on the highway. I didn't see any on the other states. I didn't see it in Georgia. I didn't see it in Florida. I don't see it in North Carolina, where I live. But I saw it all over South Carolina. Very good. I'd like to see more. That's all I got to say, Mike.
All right. Well, thank you very much here. And yeah, Tulsi did really well. I just got, I'm still on her mailing list, and I just got this invitation. They have a highlights video they put together. And of course, as always, they're asking for donations. They need to hit $130,000 in order to qualify her for the Houston debate in September. So apparently, you are determined whether or not you can be on that stage by how much money you have, not by your ideas and not by your popular support. All right, we're going to go to Tony in Puerto Rico. Aloha, Tony. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Question, Mike, in regards to tariffs. What type of impact, whether pro, con, does it have for the United States of America in terms of its economy?
Well, obviously, any product or any raw material used to make products that come from China, the tariffs are applied to it. It's kind of like a tax that the end customer has to pay.
Yeah, but what are the, like I said, what are the pros and what are the cons in regards to tariffs?
Well, the pros are protectionism for American corporations, which unfortunately are not positioned to take advantage of the situation, and that's been a problem all along. The cons are it makes everything more expensive for the American people at a time when we cannot afford it.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
All right, thank you. We're going to switch over to Paul in New Jersey. And Paul, I'm going to have to take you through the commercial break. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. Michael, it was good to hear you let Steve Elkins speak on your show. You know, it's kind of ironic because when I called Steve Elkins' show, he didn't let me speak on his show when I discussed just something as, you know, mundane as the graduated income tax. And I guess since I do believe in a graduated income tax, that makes me 1/10 of a communist, because that's one of the 10 planks in the Communist Manifesto, the end of the book. And despite what people say about the socialist blue states, I would like to remind you that according to U.S. News Report, an article from May 16th on the 10 wealthiest states, you'd find out that based on a per capita income, you would find 9 out of the 10 top states are blue states.
Okay, well, listen, Paul, I got to put you on hold.
Yeah.
We got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking with Paul in New Jersey. And Paul, just let me just tell you that the situation, I think, is a little more complex than you make it out, where politicians are always ready to take credit for when things are good and blame the opposition party when things are bad. But you need to understand that the liberal Democrats have always concentrated their political activities in states that had economic resources to work with, starting with the Deep South and the plantations prior to Civil War. So you're going to find, yes, they're out there in California, but California's prosperity, if you can call it that, isn't based on the liberal Democrats. It's based on the gold mining resources. It's based on the filmmaking industry. It's based on all the harbors and all the natural resources out there. The same thing on the East Coast, where they're in New York with the financial centers, the harbors, where all this commerce is going on. That's where they tend to gravitate to. You don't find a lot of liberal Democrats trying to set up shop in places like out in the Great Plains, where there isn't that much to work with except grain.
Exactly, but you know, I live in the state of New Jersey, and we've been hearing about people migrating out of New Jersey, and I think that's kind of a boomer phenomenon. Because remember, and this is applying to you too, Michael, is you make your money in a blue state, and you retire in a red state. And that's what people do all over the place. And a lot of it now, I believe, in leaving Jersey and New York, is just the aging boomers, and they're going to Florida to retire and die. right?
Well,
and moving to a warmer climate.
That's not what I'm hearing. What I'm hearing is people are leaving New Jersey because of the incredibly high taxation that you tend to find in Democratic strongholds and the deteriorating conditions of the region itself, again, that you find in Democratic strongholds.
Yeah, and now one thing, too, about New Jersey is, get this, New Jersey pays the most into the government in taxes on a per capita basis, federal government.
Yes.
And gets the least back from the federal government. So
well,
I would argue
that's a failure of the state government.
No, this is actually has to do with the federal government, too. We give most into the federal government. We get the least back from the federal government. You know what that makes us?
Yeah, but that's a failure of the state government.
The superior citizen, the more loyal
that's
American
a failure of the state government. Excuse me, Paul. That's a failure of the state government to stand up and say, hey, we're giving you all this money. You know, we deserve something back for it. We deserve value for money. And if you go back to the original Constitution, non-apportioned taxation is expressly forbidden.
Right, but a lot of the red states are benefiting from actually one of the planks of the Communist Party, which is about the distribution of agriculture and common planning and through the central government, try to get people to populate out in the depopulated agricultural regions of the country. So there's a lot of subsidies and military aids and posts given to the rural red states, basically by a socialist type of governmental policy, another plank of the Communist Party.
Okay,
so
on that,
take
Paul,
a good look. We're not
on that, Paul, I'm going to have to let you go. We got to take a station identification break. We'll be back with hour number 2 after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are empty, 800-313-9443. And I was just taking a look outside. The wind is starting to pick up here. We're just now starting to see the northwestern edge of Hurricane Eric start to come over us. Now, the center of the storm is going to be at the Big Island tonight. It'll be close to us, but to the south tomorrow. But it is a big storm. It is still a hurricane. It has not deteriorated down to a tropical storm as hoped for. So, yeah, it's definitely windy out there. All righty. So, we have a caller on the line. Dustin in New Jersey. Aloha, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
2 New Jerseyans behind enemy lines, me and Paul. Mike, Paul's right, but you know, the United States is basically like the European Union. They take from one country, micro country, and give to another that's less fortunate in a way, you know? So, like, everything is corrupt and messed up now. I mean, I don't know how they're going to fix this. You know, Mike, I mean, the immigration issues all messed up.
Yeah.
The wars are going on. I don't know how. And the debates, which, like, you know, I don't know. I'd rather watch paint dry on the wall, Mike, than watch these people. You know, I mean, and with Jim from Illinois is right with that article with the farmers. The bigger your farm, the more bailout you get.
Yes.
But Mike, I'm curious on that. But remember, there's that article or story about, like, Green Giant, like, they'll have vegetables that, like, corn, and they ship them to out of the country, and they get canned, right? And then they get brought back in the country.
I was unaware of that. I sort of presumed in order to maintain the freshness, they'd have a canning operation right there in where the corn was being grown. But I mean, that's pretty weird.
Yeah, that's from what I read. There's instances where there's peas and pea pods. They ship them out, get them canned, and they get them sent back here canned because it's cheaper. But do they get the bailout too? Like, well, since it's Green Giant, they do, right? Even though they ship out the pea pods, they get canned and brought. Why didn't they put a cap on the farmers, like on a certain level of how much the farm is worth to get the bailout?
Well, a better idea would be based on need. You know, the small family farmers are the ones who are struggling. These large corporate farms, they're doing quite well.
bailout is socialism, isn't it? Like, we talk about socialism. I know Tom from Florida calls in, like, about Cuba, and bailouts are socialist. Like, you shouldn't bail out anything. Like, why? Why are you bailing out the farmers? The tariffs are not, they don't work. They don't work. And you're bailing out farmers for a flawed, Mike, if Trump didn't bail out the farms, would they vote for him? Like, that's what you know what I mean? Like, that's where I'm going, because if he doesn't bail them out, they won't vote for him. So you have to bail them out to support them so they'll vote for you, but it's still a form of socialism, right?
I don't know that the bailouts are going to help Trump's image with the farmers, who are still going to be looking at those China tariffs and those Russian sanctions as having really harmed their business.
And that caller, I forgot his name right off the top of my head, I'm sorry, from Brazil. He called in, I believe, basically asking what's the pros and cons. There's no pros to tariffs. It's all cons.
Yes.
Because I remember reading this article that says Trump tariffs and would benefit the United States theoretically short term, but not long term. And this has been dragging on longer than it should be, so it's actually having a negative impact on our companies. And you can't bail out all these people. It's just impossible. Then he's no different than anybody else that's so-called socialist or whatever. You know, I mean, I just don't understand why people don't understand that. Like, if any bailout is like bailing out GM, what Obama did, right? And then Bush bailed out AIG, was it? And the Wall Street banks. That's socialism. You know, Social Security. So we have a form of that already.
Yes.
Now, and to Tom in Florida, like, why can't you lift the sanctions on Cuba and Venezuela and let their economy flourish under their own system by not impeding the system? Like, we can do trade with them and stuff like that, but why do you have to put? Because then, Mike, what happens is you put sanctions and tariffs on them, and then they say, see, socialism or communism, it doesn't work. Well, if you lift the sanctions and the tariffs, then how do I know that for a fact it doesn't work?
Well, see, there right there is the crux of the problem, okay? America's corporatocracy is desperate to keep you all convinced that communism could not possibly work because they are afraid of it. When you go back, when you had the October Revolution in Russia and the Tsar was brought down and they set up this first socialist government, it just absolutely terrified everybody in the United States who was getting rich off the work of the poor. And so they started spending huge amounts of money on propaganda to demonize the commies and keep us all just convinced from birth, capitalism is good and communism is bad. And most people have bought into it, except that I think today more and more people are realizing that our particular flavor of capitalism, which is highly predatory, is not really good for the nation as a whole and for the American people. It's just a system that works very well for the bankers and the corporate CEOs.
That would be corporatism, which is fascism. But
that's right. You're exactly right.
And my capitalism, communism, and socialism, it all depends on how corrupt the system is. So you can be praising capitalism, but we ain't capitalists because it's corrupted. So
no, we're not capitalists. We have slipped into economic fascism. And we see it, again, as you say, with all the bailouts here, TARP, and the banks got themselves into trouble with all of this mortgage-backed security fraud and derivatives. And, the government took money away from the American people and gave it to the bankers to save them. That is the model of fascism.
And then I got if I still have some time left, I just want to respond to Tom from Florida again also about, he says that his vote counts, but your vote don't count. Just because your governor declared Florida not a sanctuary city doesn't mean there's illegal immigrants flowing in your city doing cheap labor jobs that other people like the governor looks the other way about, and also that wall's still not built. So your vote don't count, because if your person gets in, either Tulsi Gabbard, either she's real or not real, they block you, so your vote don't count, Mike. That's how I look, and I'm not going to vote anymore, because that's how I feel. I just, independent or not, they won't allow, if the person we vote for is real or not real in terms of what they're saying they're going to do, the system won't allow them to do that. So our vote's void, like Boris Johnson in Britain.
Yes.
He said he's going to delay it. It's the same. He's the same. Your vote don't count in Britain, basically, right?
Yeah.
Also, like, if you're a UK citizen. So, all right, Mike, that's all I got to say. Have a good show.
All right, thanks an awful lot. As for me, I don't vote. It just seems to encourage the bastards. We're going to do a shout-out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining the network. Getting on back to the news here. Over at the Washington Compost, they wrote this weird story tying Trump to hamburgers and through the hamburgers to Russia. And so apparently the story came on out. The lead was, it's high summer, it's hamburger season, the char, the fat, the squishy perfection of processed bread, sopping up the overflowing juices, doesn't somehow seem like Americans' birthright. There's a reason that President Trump chose to serve hamburgers twice as an all-American feast for some all-American championship football players. Then they go on to say that hamburgers have a hidden Russian connection. I mean, they're still out there, pushing this Russian nonsense. And by the way, the reason they're called hamburgers is because they originated in Hamburg, Germany. And the idea of slicing up bread and putting stuff in between the slices began with the Earl of Sandwich, hence the name sandwiches. All right, we have another caller on the line, Fred in Iowa. Aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm a little bit in disagreement here, but I'll try to explain myself. Of course, we have lost our Constitution, so we don't have a constitutional government here now. But communism does not work, and socialism does not work. But I don't like to use the powers that be, but I like to be more specific. But I won't, because it's going to offend a lot of people. But, and corporatism, when you have a monopoly businesses, and a minority of the different businesses, it's only possible with the collusion of the government. Now, free enterprise, when you have to produce a service or a product that the consumer is willing to pay for it, and yes, there's competition there, but there's man left to his own ingenuity, and this is a moralistic society. Man is very creative, but when you're controlled, the economy is controlled. People lose their creativity or can't even use it.
Yes.
Socialism does not work. Now let's take Sweden. Sweden went socialist. And it worked for a little while, and then it really went down. Now Sweden has went similar to our government when we established our Constitution. And their gross domestic product has skyrocketed. They have, I think, a surplus of money, and wages and everything has went up. And so that proves right there with Sweden alone that socialism does not work. And the people were willing to go this route. And there were a lot of people, you know, in socialism, it takes the incentive out of people, the drive, the creativity.
Yes.
And there was another country too. I can't say what it is, but in regards to Venezuela and Syria and any oil-producing nation, well, the damn oil industry, the Seven Sisters, as they used to call them, have a monopoly on the world's energy. And so with collusion with the government, the Seven Sisters, or the major oil companies, which are few and extremely powerful, they want to keep their price of fuel up.
Yes.
And they control the price of fuel energy worldwide. Now you take, I'm Iowa, you know, the Iowa farmer. I come from a farm background on one side of my family for 7th generation. And my grandfather used to say when corn gets past $1 a bushel, that's too much. But here it is, corporate farms. That ceases to be free enterprise. And there's things that government and innovation can help, like contour plowing. When my grandfather farmed, it was straight up the damn hill and straight down the damn hill.
Yeah, but Fred, contour plowing was developed in the wake of the Dust Bowl era. And, you know...
Yeah. But when I was a kid in the 40s, or, you know, into the 50s, and I worked on my grandpa's farm, me and my younger brother, you know, that's how he was farmed. But he said, well, if I can't fix my machinery with a hammer, I'm not going to use it. So therefore, he farmed with horses and would only use horses. But the boys growing up, hell, that's one of the greatest experiences, you know, boys can have. My brother and I treasure that. You know, it gave us independence.
Okay, Fred, you're kind of wandering off the reservation here, and I want to back up and respond to some of the things that you said. First of all, we still do have a constitution. You are correct in saying we don't have a constitutional government, but that constitution is in fact still there. Now, any system, whether it's socialistic or capitalistic, is only as good as the people who are living in it. If you have a society of people who are basically angels, they're moral and they're ethical, these systems can work. When you have a system that is starting to go corrupt, and it goes corrupt at the top, any system will break down, whether it's capitalism or fascism or socialism, because you're going to have the people at the lower levels of society looking up at the top, very successful people, and saying, hey, they got to be rich by breaking the rules, by being immoral, by being unethical. And so I want to do the same thing. And that's part of the dissolution of society. Anyway, Fred, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to let you go and get on back here to the news. All righty, so the top Republican with the House Intelligence Committee, Representative Devin Nunes, said there is insurmountable evidence of FBI malfeasance regarding the Bureau's probe into President Trump's 2016 campaign in Russia. but what must be investigated is the FBI's actions overseas into the campaign. And these questions will also naturally involve the CIA and any relationship the clandestine agency had with the Bureau during the Russian probe. So Nunes is back out there in the fray calling for more investigations. Now, here's an interesting little story, and it came out of SHTF Plan. And it shows the results of a poll where Americans think corporate media is now more destructive than the banks and corporations. And in a lot of ways, I tend to agree with them. And we had, basically there was a study by the Rand Corporation. The corporate media is actively sowing discord in American society. And the media is focusing on making two sides or more hate each other instead of reporting on the facts. And people are starting to pick up on it. Okay, we have to take a break here for commercials, and we'll be right back. And once again, Republic Broadcasting is standing here with our little collection plate and saying, please, we need your help. Those who want to lie to you, to control you, to loot and plunder you, to send your children off to die in wars, they got lots of money. They got lots and lots of money to spend to deceive you. And those of us who are out here trying to get the truth out, well, we're kind of on a little bit of a tight budget, to put it delicately. So we really do need your continued help. And I know a lot of you are tired of hearing this constant beg for money. And I'll be honest, I'm tired of begging. It's not comfortable for me to do. But that's the reality that we're in right now. Anyway, the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can call in a credit or debit card donation or pledge to be a recurring subscriber is 800-724-2719, extension 1 during normal business hours, extension 3 at all other times. The network thanks you. I thank you. All right, let's go back to the phones here. Mark in Georgia, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, aloha to you too, sir. Regards to what I'm praying for your safe journey when you're moving here to the Konas. I don't know if you've heard about this TV series on Amazon called The Poised, about these superheroes, and it turns out they were the result of some, we'll give all these people vaccines, and it's going to kill a lot of people, but some people will wind up being superheroes. And there's one character there, they call him Homelander, and he has like this flag-like cape, and he's supposed to be the all-American good guy, and as the series unfolds, apart from a woman he raped, and apart from, it turns out that he gave this superhero-generating drugs to a bunch of jihadis. So basically, he went out of his way to manufacture enemies to fight. And somehow that seems like their way of saying this Homelander sounds a lot like Homeland Security, doesn't he?
Yeah, it does.
Manufacture enemies for us to fight. So, it's something I've been following, but it's like, superheroes are supposed to have a, super sense of morality like Superman, and it turns out they've got quite the feet of clay, or at least this one in particular is really, and basically the corporation that manufactured him and lifts him up by saying, oh, look at all the great things he's doing. They're shielding him from accountability for things that he's done that aren't so stellar.
Yes.
I didn't know you were aware of this, but
we don't get the Amazon TV, which is a shame because I think the latest season of Grand Tour is just about to start up here. But I mean, if you really think about it, think about the weapons companies in this country. They need there to be wars. And they'll actively work to try and get this country into wars because that is how they make their money.
Yeah. It just, the thing is, this is not a system based on morality. It's a system based on legal is that which is decreed. And they always have a stated goal or an official narrative to make their presumption of authority seem legitimate and in the public best interest. And, oh, yes, by the way, as a byproduct of the way we penalize you for not following our corporate decrees, we happen to put funds in our coffer and extract money from you, or so-called money. To that I say, excuse me, I mean, I was rushed through this process with so-called code enforcement in the magistrate court, and I wasn't given a chance to examine the evidence, and it turns out the guy who's now retired, I wonder if he was retired because he was doing things that were unethical, but he blatantly misrepresented some things. And when I addressed the fact that this is not an honest statement, it's just like, well, press on, so what, And the thing that concerns me is when we have a system of government that basically does absolutely nothing to rein in the money masters, as you call them, the money junkies.
Yes.
And then they extract fines. Every time they extract fines on this racket, yet do nothing to rein in the banksters, they're complicit with corruption.
Yes.
Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Anyway, all right. Well, I'll talk with you later. And you guys, I hope to scrape up some money. Right now, I'm just really struggling to cover bills myself, okay? Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. We're going to let you go. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. All right. And it is time for us to take another break. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. James Comey's back in the news, and in this case, quite literally, this story was on Fox News earlier today. But apparently, FBI agents went to James Comey's residence and retrieved a secret, previously unreported memo he drafted the night before the agents arrived, well after he was fired as FBI director. And this is all being exposed through a Freedom of Information Act request coming from Judicial Watch, which continues to do tremendous work. Now, Comey told agents spontaneously that to the best of his recollection, 2 memos were missing. A source familiar with the probe has confirmed to Fox News that the Department of Justice Inspector General's office is reviewing whether Comey's memos improperly contained classified information or whether he failed to show appropriate candor. In other words, did he lie? So there are investigations going on. They're not getting a lot of coverage. This one actually did here. Another little story coming on out. Do you know that Robert Mueller, in all of the months and millions of dollars that he spent looking for Trump-Russia collusion, he never actually interviewed Christopher Steele, the author of that phony Russiagate dossier. Never talked to him, not even once. Seems a rather strange omission, if you ask me. Okay, according to Joe DiGenova, John Durham's investigation is moving at lightning speed. He is focused on a very large criminal conspiracy. So former U.S. Attorney Joe DiGenova and his wife and attorney Victoria Tansing joined Lou Dobbs on Wednesday to discuss the ongoing investigation on the origins of the Russian witch hunt and the spying on the Trump campaign. Ever hear the phrase, justice delayed is justice denied? Well, apparently the very earliest that we will see Jeff Epstein in a courtroom for his trial will be June of next year, and there's even talk it may be pushed off to September of next year. His defense attorneys are saying, oh, there's just so much paperwork we have to review millions of pages of documents here. Stall. All right, back to the phones here. Charles in Michigan. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Hope you don't mind a little personal side trip here. I know that you are moving to Indiana.
Yes.
I do live in Michigan, kind of familiar with the area. There is, there is a government program under the USDA. It's rural development.
Yeah.
Homes that are in rural areas are sold at great assistance for low-income individuals. Now, low income can be anywhere up to $125,000 as far as they're concerned. Of course, the less that you have, then the more assistance you will get. Loans are as low as 1%. I know that rents are extremely high in this area, but there is an advantage to purchasing a home under the Rural Development USDA. It's called the direct loan, and I think it would be to your advantage to look into it at least.
Well, if you could email that to me, I will definitely look into it. But where we are in Indiana, actually the rents are quite low. That's a major reason we're going there.
Ah.
Yeah, that's a
okay. Well,
we literally cannot afford. I love Hawaii. We can't afford to live here any longer.
Yeah.
And of course, if we do get into a shooting war with Russia and China, there's a first strike nuclear target right out this window over here.
Yeah, I lived on the Big Island for a while, so I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I said, the thing is that I was looking at homes that are right around $60,000, $70,000, and the payments on those were $300.
Well, in our economic circumstance, we've never been able to buy a home. We've always had to rent, and that's what we're going to do now. Plus, Claire and I are old and getting older. I've got a birthday coming up the end of this month, and I don't think anybody would look at us and say, yeah, these are people who can repay a loan. Between our age and our various infirmities and when we arrive in Indiana, we are going to be flat broke. We're selling off everything, giving away the rest, and we're spending it all for the move. When we get to Indiana, even with the assistance coming from the family, we're going to be arriving pretty much flat broke.
Yeah. Okay. I just thought you might like to look. I'm 75. I was looking at one. That's why I came up with the information on it.
Okay.
And
you are older than I am.
It is a good deal, and it doesn't take much. Yeah, they were very happy to help me. I mean, they went out of their way. The people that
but this is up in Michigan. It's not Indiana.
Right. It's all rural areas. It also, so you might, if you're moving into a big city, it wouldn't do you any good.
No,
anyway.
No, we're not doing big city.
I'd like to help.
We're definitely aiming for rural territory, but the reason we're going into the area of Indiana where we are is because we're going to have family around, two of whom are medical professionals, and logistically it's just going to work on out. So we're being told it's going to take 3 to 4 weeks for our furniture and our computers to get sent to the mainland, same amount of time for the car. So after we get there, which is going to be basically on the 1st of September, we have to find a rental real quick and then call the car company and the moving company and say, here's where you're going to drop everything off.
Yeah. I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We're going to need it. And of course, this weekend we're dealing with a couple of big storms that are coming on through. All right. So thank you for the phone call.
Thank you.
We're going to let you go here.
You're welcome.
Now, getting on back to Jeff Epstein, there's this bizarre story that has come on out, and I wouldn't give it much credence, except this is being reported by the New York Times, which is still trying to maintain some semblance of editorial decency here. And the story is that Jeff Epstein had this grandiose plan to create a race of superhumans based on his own DNA. And what he was going to do was turn his New Mexico property into what could politely be called a baby factory, where there would be 20 women there at a time, made pregnant on Epstein's DNA, and just cranking out new babies. Now, this is like real Bond villain kind of stuff, or real Boys from Brazil kind of stuff. But that was apparently the plan. And Epstein was using a lot of his money to lure scientists into his circle to try and sell them on this idea. And the other day there was that issue about Stephen Hawking and others showing up at Epstein's place. Well, it turns out Epstein was handing out all kinds of science grants, which sort of obligated these scientists to show up for their photo op here. So, I mean, the guy's a nut. Or the New York Times is just pulling the stuff out of thin air. All right, getting on to the international news here. The United States is poised to renew anti-Iran nuclear sanctions waivers. And this is a blow to the hawks, because they're going to extend the these waivers for certain companies doing business with Iran. They're going to extend the waivers with European countries doing business with Iran. So basically, it looks like the United States is taking a step back from the confrontation, at least for a little bit. That may be a good thing. However, the United States did sanction Iran's foreign minister, and that did not help the situation. In fact, Iran is accusing the United States of childish behavior. Well, he's got that one right. More and more oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz are going dark, which is basically shop talk for turning off their locators and transponders. There's a growing concern that there are going to be more incidents of ships being seized. And so more ships are turning off the transponders. Okay. Now this is a technique used by smugglers and those hoping to avoid American sanctions. At some point, somebody's going to set up a skin paint radar high on that coastline here. Apparently, there is this Saudi student and activist, Mohammed Saud, who's a big fan of Benjamin Netanyahu. And right now, he is out there saying it's time for Israel to seize the Al-Aqsa Mosque. That would really ignite things. Meanwhile, John Bolton is demanding that Japan increase their spending on the U.S. military 5-fold. And this is apparently coming directly from Donald Trump, who has all along during the campaign, we're willing to go on out and police the world, but the world has got to pay us for the privilege here. So apparently in talks with Japanese Foreign Minister Taro Kono and Shotaro Yachi, the head of the National Security Council Secretariat, last week, U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton raised the possibility of the 5-fold increase in Japan's spending on U.S. military. So Trump has long complained that Japan is not contributing enough to its own defense. Well, you know, if the U.S. wasn't going around threatening to set the entire world at war, they wouldn't need to spend that much. Hang on a second. Just have to, we're dealing with moving issues. Okay. Apparently there is this Palestinian-born professor, Dr. Rabab Abdul-Hadi, and he's suing San Francisco State University in federal court for illegal retaliation for her political speech, and in state court for breach of contract and employment discrimination. And there's already a crowd fund being set up to cover the expenses of the litigation. But basically, she is pushing back at attacks by the Israel lobby, which has never been shy about going onto university campuses and demanding that this or that pro-Palestinian speaker or activist be denied a forum. And to their shame, too many of these school administrators are going along with it. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and U.S. President Donald Trump tried to shut down of criticism of Israel with accusations of anti-Semitism, but she says critiquing Israel means you believe in human rights. Now, she got that one correct. Over in Israel, they're having riots right now with the Ethiopian Jews, and it was sparked off by this 19-year-old Solomon Teka, who'd been shot dead by an off-duty policeman in unclear circumstances. This is not the first time. It's happened before, and police impunity is at the heart of the problem, because every time one of the Ethiopians gets killed or seriously wounded, nothing happens. Over in Yemen, a United Arab Emirates-backed commander was amongst those killed when an explosion struck a military parade in Yemen's southern city of Aden today. Scores were injured and killed in the blast, which rocked the seat of Yemen's Saudi-backed, internationally recognized government. And, of course, the Houthis took credit, saying they'd launched a medium-range ballistic missile and an armed drone at the military parade. So those Houthis are proving to be a lot tougher than anybody expected. Okay. Russia, now that it looks like Venezuela's coup d'etat, Guaido's coup d'etat has failed, Russia is planning major investments in Venezuela. See, the U.S. goes on in, they try a coup d'etat, they drive Venezuela right into Russia's sphere of influence. Our foreign policy is and has been a disaster. We are losing influence around the world, mostly because of our bullying tactics and our attempted use of fear of our weaponry rather than mutual respect and cooperation. Now, over in China, Chinese forces are gathering at the border with Hong Kong. And nobody's sure exactly what's happening there. It's obviously related to the rioters going on between Hong Kong protesters and police. And a U.S. official is saying a number of units had gathered at the border. It's not clear if they're security police or part of the regular army. But it looks like Beijing may decide it's time to reunify with Hong Kong by force. Okay, getting on back to Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. He's the alleged mastermind behind 9/11 after only 135 waterboardings. And he's coming up finally, after all these years, on his day in court. But now everybody's getting very nervous because he could spill some secrets like Saudi Arabia's involvement in 9/11. So I'm expecting him to get very, very depressed in the near future. Over in North Korea, they've had another short-range military missile test, and already they're out there saying, oh, it's Russian technology. It's got to be Russian, those evil Russians. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. So the Koreans have had another missile test, and any excuse to demonize the Russians, oh, those Russians, they're helping the North Koreans. All right, now, one of our earlier callers was talking about the huge cost of the U.S. military. In fact, right now, the Pentagon's budget is larger than the rest of the government put together. Think about that one for a while. Part of the reason, of course, is that we are maintaining these hundreds and hundreds of military bases around the world. They absorb vast amounts of money. And as a result, what's left over for weapons development is a little tight relative to Pentagon spending. And as a result, we're getting some real problems out there. So on the Gerald R. Ford, the USS Gerald R. Ford, our newest and greatest, and I might add, most expensive aircraft carrier, this thing was supposed to be ready in May of 2017. And right now, they've got a problem with what are called the munitions elevators. Now, these are the elevators that go deep down inside the ship to the special lockers where the various bombs and missiles and so forth are stored. They bring them up on deck to be loaded onto the warplanes. And apparently, there are 11 of these elevators. Only 2 are working. And they're saying there is no estimate of when they're going to get the rest of them up and running. So, yeah, that's pretty bad. All right, we have another caller on the line. Bill in Florida. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, hi, Mike. Hey, I was wondering, when you make your move there, are you going to be staying with RBN?
Yes. And we're going to...
Okay. Well, I was just wondering. I'm not crazy about it.
We're going to try, and I mean, there's going to have to be a couple of days there where I'm off the air when we're in a jetliner. But I set up this little laptop where I can do my broadcasts from that. In fact, we tested it last week out on the island of Kauai. And so we're going to be able to do the broadcast. There may be some days where I simply cannot do it for logistical reasons, but we're going to get through it the best that we can. And then once all of our goods arrive at our new home and I rebuild my studio, we'll be back to basically doing what we're doing here right now. I'm going to learn some lessons from the way I set up this studio, and hopefully the next one will be better.
Well, hey, how difficult would it be for you to open up your own station? I mean, like RBN on the internet.
I really, I'm sure it's technically possible. I'm really not inclined to do so. And that has to do with the fact that I'm already working incredibly hard, very long hours. And again, I'm an old guy and getting older all the time.
I know, I hear you, but I mean, you're doing such a great job. I just feel like you're, I don't know. I'm just, I wish you could extract yourself from that RBN network there.
There's no reason for me. I mean, they treat me very well. They let me say what I want to say. RBN's a great, from my point of view, RBN's a great place to be. Anyway, listen, thank you for the phone call. We got to take a break for station identification, and we'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 3. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. This story is just now coming on in. The Department of Justice will not prosecute James Comey for leaking classified memos to his friend. And basically, this goes back to when Trump fired Comey in May of 2017. And he gave some of these memos with classified information to Daniel Richman, a Columbia Law professor, with instructions to share some of the information with the New York Times, which then published it. Clear Title 18 violation. But hey, he didn't mean to do wrong. That's the Hillary defense. He didn't mean to do wrong. So the Department of Justice will not prosecute him. Is anybody here really all that surprised? I'm not. Comey's another one of the untouchables here. All right, let's look at the economic news here. Wall Street should be prepared for more tariffs on Chinese goods. This is actually a little out of date because it's already been announced on TV that as of the 1st of September, Trump is going to impose tariffs on pretty much all Chinese imports. And it's insane. It's absolutely insane here. Some people are saying the only way to save the economy from the trade war is to lower interest rates. Well, they've already done that as well. And we're seeing the effect of it already. China's U.S. soybean purchases have plunged to 2004 lows. So now U.S. soybean farmers, they're in trouble. They get caught in the crossfire of the trade war. All right, we're going to take a phone call. Chris in Las Vegas. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, Michael, this story about the Comey non-prosecution by the so-called fair, neutral, unbiased, very vindictive Department of Justice seems to me to strongly suggest that they have given themselves the privilege to be engaged in felony oppression of justice and the color of law.
Yes.
Whereby they are choosing not to prosecute obvious criminal violations. The same thing that I have here in Nevada with the district attorney here, oppressing justice under the color of law and not letting me have any justice against my former bride who was suborned to commit felony perjury and become a co-agent with the FBI and the Joint Terrorism Task Force against myself lying on the stand. And he interjected himself there, the same thing.
Yeah, it is. It's a corrupt system. It really is. You know, the elites, the untouchables, you know, and these are all people who seem to, one way or the other, track back, you know, to the drug cartels.
Well, Michael, whenever you, liar, did the investigation on the hoax of the Russian investigation, when it was obvious that Hillary Clinton and her ilk were involved in Russian collusion and fixing elections with the Russians and the Ukrainians.
Yes.
And he criminal converted millions and millions of the American people's dollars to his own self-interest, along with his sycophantic Andrew Weissman and a team of DNC-based Democrat liar lawyers who were on a hit squad against Donald Trump, the president that was elected by the people to present our interest. It seems to me that we have gone into a lawless society with criminals sitting in the seats of justice, giving themselves exoneration from high crimes and misdemeanors that ought to be treasonous and prosecuted to the highest degree of the law.
Okay. I agree.
Where is justice for the American people? When will we get justice? When will they be held to accountability? Why are they exonerated from things that, like Bradley Manning, are brought against them for much less crimes than the Hillary Clinton gang, the Muley or the Brennan, and all these other high-based agency communists that are in office?
It's a mess here. I mean, Judicial Watch just put out a little blurb from their account saying, yeah, we knew this was going to happen.
Well, and we know that nothing's going to happen to this serial child sex abuser and human trafficker, Epstein, Wexman, all this other group of Hillary Clinton and the Clinton gang and their Mossadamites operation of honey traps. How much damaging information? We already know that the whole flipping government is a bunch of pervert criminals. Why should it be shocking to the American public to learn the obvious?
Well, it's not shocking to me, but I think there's still a segment of our American population that would like to see some semblance of justice going on here. We've got Comey in violation of Title 18, felony. Hillary Clinton, felony violations of Title 18. Nothing ever happens to them. Now we're seeing Jeff Epstein. His trial is being put off until the end of next year in the hope that the American people will have completely forgotten about him when they give him another wrist slap and let him go.
Well, Michael, we have to track this back to the terrorocracy of the judiciary and the bar. The bar is not part of government. It's a private association. And these are really mercenaries masquerading as their neutral counsel when they are a warring force against the American people, and they're destroying us from within by covering up the criminal acts of their cronies who they fear might take retaliation on them if they hold them to accountability, depriving the American people and the world of true justice and redress of grievances. It's a horrific discarriage by injustice and non-prosecution.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Anyway,
Thank
Chris,
you, Mike.
all right.
I'm appalled.
Well, yes, take a number after me. Like I said, I'm not surprised, but I am still ticked off about it. Okay, Chris, thank you for the phone call. We're going to let you go and switch over to Bob in South Carolina. Aloha, Bob. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Mike, I got an answer to a question you had posed to you yesterday. I couldn't get in time before the show ended. So it was about whether or not the unleaded gas would destroy or harm pre-unleaded gas engines.
Yep.
And the answer is yes.
Ah.
Yeah, because what happened is in the mid-'90s, I had to replace an engine in my truck, and I got it replaced with a pre-unleaded gas built engine. And when I couldn't get unleaded gas anymore, about 4 months later, the engine was destroyed. I had the heads taken off, and the valve seats were totally gouged out.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know.
So yeah, if you use unleaded gas in an old classic car that hasn't had hardened seats put in it, it'll destroy the engine really quick.
Oh, that's a darn shame here. That is a darn shame. Well, let's just
Well, anyways, that's all I had.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. We're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining the network. Getting on back to the economic news, to nobody's surprise, Airbus profits are skyrocketing while Boeing continues to stumble over the 737 MAX crisis. And part of that, of course, is that a lot of Boeing customers are now switching their orders to Airbus. And that Boeing CEO, who decided to be a social justice warrior and let the experienced white design engineers go and bring in a bunch of outsiders with less education and certainly no experience, they're paying for it now. He may have actually destroyed that company. Over in North Dakota, they have this law that's just gone into effect. It reforms the state's asset forfeiture process. It prohibits the state from taking a person's property without a criminal conviction. Now, that is a really good thing. In too many of these states with civil forfeiture, they'll take your property on a mere suspicion. Unfortunately, North Dakota's new law leaves a loophole in place that allows the police to circumvent the stricter state laws by passing these civil forfeiture cases off to the federal government, which does not have such a limitation. Oh, it sure looks like you were going to do something nasty. I'll just take that from you. Thank you very much here. Samsung Electronics saw their profits plunge in the second quarter as its key chip business faltered. And the firm also warned of challenges ahead. So apparently operating profit fell 56% from a year earlier. That is serious. And the result reflects a broader industry slowdown, weighed down by this ongoing U.S.-China trade war. All right. Speaking of China, there's concern about overfishing the oceans, and there are strict limits on tuna fishing. You've got Sea Shepherd down there trying to keep the Japanese whalers at bay, And apparently the International Court of Justice just came out with a ruling saying that Japan's claims that they're doing scientific research with all the huge amount of whales they're harvesting really doesn't hold up to inspection. Now, whether Japan is going to do anything about that or not remains to be seen. The Japanese are very big on whale meat, and so we'll see what happens there. But apparently the biggest problem right now is what are called the Chinese mega trawlers, which are literally stripping the ocean floor of fish. And it's estimated that the world's fisheries have collapsed 90%. We're running out of food. We are genuinely heading toward a Malthusian catastrophe. We're running out of food. We've toxified the Pacific and the Gulf of Mexico. Our Midwest farms are underproducing because of the massive flooding. It's a problem here. Okay, Doug Weed is a New York Times bestselling author. He's credited for coining the term compassionate conservative. He's been an advisor to 2 presidents. And he's out there saying, if the United States gives free health care to illegal aliens, as some Democratic candidates are advocating, it would be the end of the country as it now exists. I could imagine we would actually see rioting over that. And he's basically saying, if you do that, if you offer this free health care to anybody who sneaks over the border, you're going to just see millions of people just running across the border or limping across the border and saying, fix me, fix me. Now, nearly 60% of Americans oppose free health care for illegal aliens. Despite this, Bernie Sanders once again advocated that in the debate. Okay, Bernie, you going to pay for that yourself? Current estimates are that there will be 1.1 million illegal immigrants at our southern border this fall. 1.1 million. It is totally, totally out of control here. Over in Germany, there's a Syrian refugee who has stabbed a Kazakh migrant with a samurai sword and did it in broad daylight. Now, this puts the lie to a comment made by German Chancellor Angela Merkel back in February 2017 when she said, Islam is not the source of terror. And then in May of 2017, after Islamists tried to blow up a bus carrying a top German soccer team, Merkel said, well, there is no doubt that some refugees pose a security threat. Now, Germany is a country with a population of 80 million. They've received over 1 million migrants and unvetted refugees in 2015. In 2016, Islamic extremists murdered 22 people in Germany in 7 different attacks. And now this with the samurai sword. When you invite the third world into your country, you also invite third world problems, third world behavior. Okay, do you remember Gillette, shaving products, decided they were going to get politically correct, and they came out with a series of commercials to basically oppose toxic masculinity and redefine the phrase, the best that a man can be. And they took a beating for it, an $8 billion write-down. And Gillette is trying to say, well, it's currency fluctuations and more competition, and, consumers are shaving less frequently, and they're just making up these excuses. They don't want to admit that they made a huge mistake. When you are going to buy a Gillette razor, you want a clean shave, you don't want a lecture on why your masculinity is toxic. So, epic fail there. Epic fail. All right. The ACLU says that biological male athletes who identify as females won't end women's sports, that trans women are women. Apparently, the ACLU is on the other side of this debate. They're launching this campaign in support of transgender student athletes, saying it's pure discrimination to prevent men from competing with women. I think the ACLU has just jumped the shark with that one. Okay. All righty. Apparently, actor and host Mario Lopez came on out and made a comment saying parents shouldn't raise 3-year-olds as transgender. And apparently this came on out on the Candace Owens show. And Lopez, who's Catholic, said, it is dangerous for parents to raise children as young as 3 years old as transgender. I absolutely agree with him. Owens noted the Hollywood trend of stars speaking out about their young transgender children. That's the latest status symbol in Hollywood. You know, it used to be an ocelot. Now it's, I have a transgender child. I am better than you. That really is sick. It's another reason why I'm kind of glad to be out of the industry here. Now, Trump's little kerfuffle with Elijah Cummings has revived the question of just what condition are America's cities in. And NBC up in San Francisco went on out to basically take a look. And they came back with a story called Diseased Streets, saying that it was heartbreaking to see our children living in one of the wealthiest cities in the world having to avoid stepping in human poo and needles every day on their way to preschool. And it is. Why? Because all that wealth is concentrated at the very top, and the people at the very top are liberals, and they want open borders, and they just want to flood the people in there as Democratic voters, and they don't care what it does to the city itself. It really is not good. Okay, we got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And yesterday we were reporting on this story from Greenville County, South Carolina, in which this homeowner was shot inside his home. Legal concealed carry permit guy was shot inside his home by a sheriff's deputy who has still not been named, who just shot through the window when he saw this guy holding a gun. And the claim was made that the homeowner, Dick Trench, had opened the front door and pointed the gun at the sheriff's deputy, which would have justified the shooting. But then the body cam footage came on out and showed that was very clearly not the case. So today, the South Carolina Sheriff's Office has officially retracted that part of the story and is apologizing for the misleading statement about the officer-involved shooting. Misleading, heck, you lied. You lied to try and justify another innocent citizen being gunned down and killed by a badge. That's exactly what it is. So they're rioting over in Israel over police impunity. How long before that starts here as well? Now, we mentioned this before, but it's worth mentioning again because we have a few more details. Architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth got together with New York area fire commissioners, got them all together and basically did a presentation to them. And at that point, a resolution was read aloud and passed along, calling for a new investigation into 9/11 because of the overwhelming evidence of pre-planted explosives, which I hope includes those pictures of the slant-cut cutter charge scars on the load-bearing members of the towers here. But apparently it was unanimously approved by the 5 fire commissioners. Now, we can expect the government will just stand there and go, okay, big deal. You want an investigation? We just don't have the budget for it. You know, you can have an investigation, or you can all have a new fire truck. Okay, up in Washington State, a little bit of good news for those who like to toke a little bit. The state government there has created a streamlined process to expunge some marijuana charges, to have them completely erased from the records. And they also passed a law that will allow students to consume medical marijuana at school. Slowly but surely, people are coming to their senses about the Pakalolo. Getting on the world of computers and so forth and so on. There apparently were 5 bugs in Apple's iMessage service for the iPhone that require no user interaction to exploit, including one that would allow remote attackers to access content stored on the iOS devices. Now, first discovered by the Google Project Zero security researcher Natalie Silvanovich, Apple has fully patched 4 of the flaws as part of the 12.4 iOS update. Apparently, that 5th flaw is still out there. Facebook is actually working on a system to read your mind. And apparently there's going to be this headband that you put on, and it will read your thoughts, take them into the computer to allow you to basically type out documents at 100 words per minute. Now, having worked with voice recognition, I'm already seeing a problem here. Most people are not that well organized inside their brain. It's the process of figuring out how we're going to type it that tends to organize things. So it'll be interesting, might be fun to play with. I'm sure they're already looking at military applications for it, but that's where they're going to go with it. Meanwhile, Facebook has admitted that it stored at least 600 million passwords in plain text, with employees having access to the files for years. These are the kinds of goofs that lead to these huge, huge data breaches. And a lot of people might think, well, you know, what's on Facebook that I've got to worry about? It's the principle, okay? It basically means that information was searchable and readable by everybody, not just your friends. It's a huge security risk. And when you've got 20,000 employees with access to an unprotected network storage bank, password storage bank, things can look grim. And according to the report, the plain text password issue could affect users of Facebook, Facebook Lite, and Instagram. And in some cases, the Facebook data dates back as far as 2012, 7 years ago. Now that's serious. These companies, you give them your data and they're reckless with it. They're not taking care of it. It's just another commodity to pass around and sell. We'll be right back after these few words. Aloha America, welcome back to our show here. We're going to go to the phones to Jim in New York. Aloha, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, hi, Mike. I was reading this article today from Information Liberation. It says neocon Max Boot said Tuesday in the Washington Post that when America becomes a white minority, the Trump era will be seen as the last gasp of white resistance. And you know, I'm afraid he has a good point. I think this was the last chance for, well, white people, and with the flooding of the migrants that's still happening under President
seems we're headed towards like Brazil, where just be a conglomeration of all different races and things like that. What do you think?
I'm sorry, I was momentarily distracted here. Could you back up and give me that last sentence?
Yeah, he said it's Trump administration is like the last gasp for white America before we become overcome with minorities, if you will.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. It's interesting, this character, Max Boot. He used to be considered, during the Bush neocon administration, a solid conservative advisor to President Bush. Now he's become a Democrat. So, well, whoever I can get a war started with, I'll join the Democrats, I'll join the Republicans. He doesn't care, and I think people like him, Max Boot, and many others, one day they'll call themselves a conservative. A year later, they'll say they're a liberal. As long as they can get their wars, and they can get dominantly white Americans to fight their wars for Israel.
Yes.
And that's why they use white people for wars for Israel. But then once they're done, they discard them. And they actually have contempt for them. That's the people. These are the people. And the military has to be warned. These are the people who are sending you to war. They hate you.
Yes.
But they want you to fight, and fight Persians, for example, in Iran. And like yesterday, I was saying that's why I think Fox is so dangerous. Fox has to be discredited, just like all the other networks. I tell people, all TV news and mainstream news is propaganda. And I know so many people, they're like, oh, but Fox is different. No, Fox, anyways, is worse. Is they're getting middle American whites, and they're going to try to rally them for more Middle East wars. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing, Fox News has definitely deteriorated. It's basically becoming just another corporate media outlet. There was a brief time where it seemed to be a conservative counterpoint to the other liberal corporate media like CNN, but they're kind of blurring together. And it's always the same message, Iran is bad, Russia's bad, China's bad, we're good.
Yes. Well, Fox, they're fair on social issues like, say, abortion or gun rights and things like that. But when it comes to the wars, Fox is total neocon.
Yep.
And they have to be discredited. It's very important, because I don't know what circles you go in, but my circle's still too many people. They say, I hate CNN and those liberal networks. That's why I watch Fox. And,
well, you might want to remind them that Fox stood up there shoulder to shoulder with CNN and MSNBC and said Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction.
I do. But sadly, your average American, they're trying to pay the bills, working 2 jobs. They come home, they plop on their couch, put the TV on, and that's it. They don't have the time to research these things. But I agree with you. Our only hope is an economic collapse, and the sooner the better. And
That's it. Otherwise, it's just more frog in the pot, slow, steady destruction of the country. And I think the elite's plan is just to have people like you, me, people in their 50s and 60s, to just slowly die off, be replaced.
Yeah, we're definitely all headed that way.
Yeah, and doesn't look good. So an economic collapse, I hate to say it, the sooner the better. At least maybe there could be a major change in the way things are headed.
Well, yeah, I don't see that this nation is able to continue on the way it has been. It's either going to get into a war it can't win, or there's going to be an economic crash. But then throughout history, all empires have collapsed eventually.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you for taking my call, and have a great show, Mike.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Now, over at YouTube, they recently changed their algorithms to stop recommending videos involving conspiracies. And it turned out to be a costly decision. They have lost 8% of their ad revenue. You know, when I was younger, there was sort of this idea that the customer is always right, and that if you're in some form of business that deals with the public, your goal is to make that public happy. And we're living in an age right now where companies have got this arrogant attitude of, you're lucky we let you use our service, therefore you will play by our rules. Alrighty, somebody is sounding the concern over the fact that the Pentagon last year purchased thousands of Chinese tech products that contain known cybersecurity vulnerabilities, and officials have yet to enact any policies to prevent it from happening again. Last year, the Pentagon bought more than 9,500 commercial printers, computers, and cameras, despite warnings that adversaries could use the products to infiltrate networks and spy on personnel, according to Inspector General Audit. The procurements, which totaled roughly $33 million, exposed significant shortcomings in the department's supply chain security policies that persist to this day, auditors said in a redacted report published earlier this week. Specifically, the Army and Air Force purchased more than 8,000 printers from Lexmark and 1,500 computers from Lenovo, two Chinese companies that national security officials previously linked to the Communist Party's espionage operations. So bad China, bad China. Up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, they are looking at a measure to ban all facial recognition technology in the city. This would make them the fourth U.S. city to ban facial recognition. Oakland, San Francisco, and Somerville, Massachusetts have all passed ordinances to prohibit active use of facial recognition technology by city departments and barring the use of data or evidence produced by facial recognition software systems in criminal investigations or legal proceedings. I think it's a very smart thing to do, given how inaccurate these systems are proving to be out in the field. Okay, so scientist Jorge Araujo, used to be Merck's former lead supervisor for vaccine safety, does not allow his children to be vaccinated due to sterility concerns. This was the guy who was in charge of vaccine safety, and he's saying they're not safe. And so he's absolutely refusing to allow his children to be vaccinated. It's another insider going on the outside. And Araujo's wife is a nurse, and she agreed it is simply not safe. In fact, vaccines are very dangerous and experimental, but the CDC pushes them on all the country full of naive patients for life with the big slogan lie that claims they're always safe and effective. Remember, the CDC is not a government agency, it's a private corporation. They own the patents on something like 30 different vaccines. And yet every year they come out and say, we're the CDC and we insist that you put these vaccines into your children. It's marketing. That's all it is. It's marketing. Now, Merck has admitted that the media hysteria over measles is earning them huge profits with the measles vaccine. And of course, they're talking about the outbreak, which wasn't all that big, that helped boost sales in its second quarter. And if you go back and remember the outbreak always seemed to hit people who'd had the measles vaccine. Meanwhile, as a counterexample, over in Japan, there are no vaccine mandates. Children are not required to get any vaccinations at all, and yet they have the healthiest children in the world. You think about that one for a while. We're going to go to the phones here to Mike in Brazil. Aloha, Mike. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Mike, I was listening to the previous callers, and I really appreciate their input. First of all, I need to say that the Democratic Party really ought to be called the Communist Party because their platform is virtually identical to the Communist platform.
Yes.
And I bet you know that, and I know that, and most of the listeners know that. And another thing I was going to ask you, apart from politics, okay, I'd like to ask you this question. Okay, the Federal Reserve being a private entity,
yes.
What standing does the FBI have in investigating bank robberies since the Federal Reserve and the banks are a private entity?
Well, you need to remember that the Federal Reserve is a central bank. It does not own or control the ordinary depositor banks out there across the country.
Yeah, well, Mike, I don't understand. I mean, if somebody robs a bakery store, right, a bakery shop, you're not going to get the FBI involved in this, are you?
It depends on how big a bakery it is, but I see what it is you're saying. Mostly the FBI gets involved in bank robberies because it's a much more serious crime, at least under the law, than robbing a bakery. And in most cases, bank robbers tend to flee across state lines, which automatically brings it into the FBI's jurisdiction. These days, however, the FBI doesn't really care about jurisdiction. They're going to go and do what they think they need to do.
Well, according to your argument, then I can go and knock off a bakery, steal a few loaves of bread, and cross the state lines, and then the FBI has jurisdiction. Is that what you're saying?
Well, first of all, if you go into that bakery and you start shooting it up, the local police have jurisdiction first. Then if you cross the state line, then the FBI has jurisdiction.
Exactly right. That's what I thought. And you just confirmed my suspicions. Now, you're talking about, I keep listening to you about this economic collapse. I wish it was true, but I believe that the revolution, an internal uprising of the most violent type, which you and I hate, both of us hate, will take precedence before this economic collapse you're talking about, because I watched the debate, the Democratic debate, and I tell you what, I couldn't go through the first 10 minutes without going to the bathroom and puking. Okay, I'll be very fair with you.
Okay.
I felt so disgusted with what I saw, and I was asking myself, is this the best the Democrats have? Yeah, you're looking at Kamala Harris, and
a lot of people were saying that. I was saying that.
Mike, I nearly puked. I went to the bathroom. I felt like like when you eat something very heavy and it accumulates to your throat, And I was thinking, I said, God, is this what they have for the Democratic Party? Are you kidding me? This is a clear win for Trump in 2020. Don't discuss it. No matter how much you hate him or love him. Well, I tell you, I was like flabbergasted. I didn't know what to say. And another thing I was going to say, listening to these people's platform, the way they spoke during the debate, they all seem to be mentally ill. they seem to have, they seem to be clinically insane because none of their plans work. They're crazy, literally in the medical sense.
Their plans don't have to work. They just have to sound good. The plans don't have to work. They just have to sound good. Because, again, these are campaign promises that they're talking about, of which they have no real intention of keeping.
Well, my only prayer is that you are right, Mike. And I every morning when I wake up, I'm thinking about you, and I say, I hope Rivero is right. I hope the collapse is going to come before the bloody uprising, because the way I see it, I don't know who's going to be the next president in 2020. I have no idea. It could be Trump, it could be Kamala Harris. I don't know. But I tell you something: if the wrong person gets in the wrong, in the White House and being coronated as the king of the United States, all hell is going to break loose, because we have the leftists on one hand, we have the right on the other hand, and I'm thinking about all these gun owners. They spend a lot of money, to make their guns look nice, sexy. I used to be a gun owner. I used to own a whole arsenal of
Mike,
guns.
Mike, I got to cut you off. We got to take a break for commercials. Back with the last segment of our program after these few words. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. Last segment of our program today. And once again, the scammers are out there. And this involves targeting seniors. And it involves genetic testing. And the fraudsters are finding their victims through cold calls, knocking on doors, email, Facebook ads, and so forth. They troll low-income housing complexes, senior centers, health fairs, antique shops. Some of the fraudsters claim to work for Medicare. This is being investigated by the Federal Trade Commission. So, capitalizing on the growing popularity of genetic testing and fears of terminal illness, scammers are persuading seniors to take two types of genetic screenings that are covered by Medicare Part B. And the tests aim to detect their risk for cancer or medication side effects. Now, the scammers then bill Medicare for the tests, and the patients might never receive any results at all. But they also risk compromising their personal information and family medical history, and ultimately the taxpayers foot the bill for tests that may be unnecessary or inappropriate. And scammers can really cash in. Medicare pays an average of $6,000 to $9,000 for these tests. It's obviously not a home kit. This is coming from the Office of the Inspector General at the Department of Health and Human Services. So these DNA test scams appear to be ramping up. Complaints are on the way up here. Complaints to the Inspector General Fraud Hotline have poured in at rates as high as 50 per week. That's up from 1 or 2 complaints a week at the same time last year. Meanwhile, getting to the realm of human-caused global warming and the fraud that it is, Andrew Yang, during the debate, was out there saying, we're too late to save Earth. Well, okay, then let me have my plastic bags back. If it's too late, let's give up all this environmental nonsense here. Meanwhile, of course, Google has spent $20 million to pull together this climate summit, to which Obama and all these A-listers they're flocking to it in private jets and helicopters and just pouring out the carbon like crazy. Okay, a little bit of good news here. The solar sail project from the Planetary Society is working. They basically put up a CubeSat that deployed this, I think it's 80 feet by 80 feet thin mylar solar sail, and based on the solar radiation, the orbit is increasing in height. So it's actually working. This was the dream of a lot of different science fiction writers and scientists like Carl Sagan. But it's a huge, huge success for them on that one. All right, so there's the music. Time for me to get out of here. Please stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of things to share with you. Take what you learn here, share it with everybody that you know, And please donate to Republic Broadcasting. Please donate to whatreallyhappened.com. We'll be back tomorrow on Friday. Aloha, America.